Roaming with the Ramsays. When we chose to name our channel that, it's because we really do like to go to an area and just travel around the area. It's nothing for us to go and put a couple 100 miles on our vehicle for a day just to do some exploring or roaming.
Yep.
So when you go roaming with the Ramsays, you never know where you're going to end up.
Yes.
And today?
Today, we are dating back to 1600s on some of the parts of Maine that we are going to show you today. And currently, we are standing at
the Colonial Pemaquid State Historic Site. So it's also the home of Fort William Henry, which dates back into the mid to late 1600s. Early English settlers and the Pemaquid Indians used to live in this area. The fort has come under attack numerous times and had to be rebuilt a couple times. On the grounds there's also some old foundations of former houses that used to be here. Those foundations are roped off. They do have a museum, which was pretty cool. The museum has some old artifacts that were dug up in this area by an archaeology site that they worked on. And today they just happen to have some extra events going on. So there's some old shipbuilders and historians.
There's people that are dressed back in the 1600s, 1700s when people lived here, and when the English would come over and fish for cod here.
Right.
So it's pretty neat.
And they've got a whole bunch of displays, so we're going to go check those out.
They heat this up in the forge.
Right.
It's placed in there, just like that. And you take your chisel, and you're going to take it, starting about 3/8 of an inch. You're going to take and pound right in and raise a barb right up.
Gotcha.
And so that's what I've done. And now I've sharpened that, with a file, as you can see, and then we'll heat and bend that into shape.
Is a barb on that already?
Yep.
Yeah.
Put the barb on it.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Okay.
Can you see it?
That is cool.
I'm like, can you see it in the camera?
Yeah. I didn't have my glasses on. Yeah.
So you also got to keep an eye on where the barb's at, so you bend the hook right.
That's right. And there's the hook. Okay. Do that.
Nice.
Okay, now we're going to do the last part.
All right, sounds good.
Of it. We take and turn this around, and we're going to flatten the pad right on the end, and then that is how you actually would take the cod line and you would lash it right onto the shank, and this little pad will keep it from sliding off.
Huh?
Okay?
No holes, huh? They don't.
No eye. No, that comes in later, until around the 19th century. So now it has to be heat treated.
Correct.
Now in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat it up to a red color, and it'll be quenched right in water. And that'll make it too hard. It'll actually be brittle at that point, so if you try to catch a fish, it'd snap right off. So what you're going to do is you're going to sacrifice some of that hardness or workability, and that's called tempering. So it's going to be polished somewhat, get it good and shiny, and then we'll reintroduce heat to it. I'm going to put a bar of iron on top of the coals here, get it good and hot, and lay the hook right onto it, and watch the colors. So a blacksmith is basically a hardware store for the community. Anything you needed will be made or repaired here, and that includes a lot of different variety of things. The household hardware, all the nails there that I've made.
The door latches he made. So he said he made over 900 nails for this building so far.
Yeah.
So this was your standard fisherman's house. This is pretty cool. Now I'm guessing that, well, this is,
It's thatch.
yeah, I was going to say, it
So
reminds
it's-
me of thatched roofs over in Ireland, because we stayed in a farmhouse in Ireland that had a thatched roof.
Yep. So the
Pretty
people
cool.
here, this is Bristol, Maine. So the people here come from Bristol, England, where they have thatched roofs like this. And you're not going to invent new things when you go to new places. You just build the house the way
Build
you
what
used
you
to.
know. Yep.
And so it's a thatched roof, just exactly like the ones in England. It's a salt marsh reed, which means it's hollow.
Right.
So it's great insulation, and when it gets wet, it swells up, and it is great for shedding water. And you never have to replace the thatch; you just add more.
Add more to it,
And
right?
so what you probably saw when you were, like in England, there are some with 4-foot thick thatch because it's 500 years later. How thick is your thatch?
Yep.
Ship's biscuit. It's hardtack.
Yep. Hardtack. Yep.
And this is, it's like salt pork to me. It's supposed to be so basically you take a chunk of pork
Yep.
and you bury it in salt, and the salt sucks all the moisture out
All
of
the
it,
moisture out.
and it will keep forever and ever and ever. It doesn't go bad, but it's never good.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
And you could eat it just like this.
Yep.
It's painfully salty and has a disgusting texture. So the way you would prefer to eat this is to boil it.
Okay.
And that would get some of the salt out of it and change the texture to something sort of a corned beef texture at that point. And after you boil it, the way you want it, if you want to keep it for years after it's been boiled, you wrap it in a piece of linen, and then you wrap that in a piece of wool fabric.
Okay.
And then you stash it somewhere for another couple of years. And so a lot of this food that we're eating here in the 17th century, we're not making the food here. Like we don't have
Right.
pigs that we're
Right,
slaughtering.
right.
We're getting it shipped in from other places, Europe, Massachusetts, places like that. It comes in barrels. Some of it comes dry like this. Some of it comes pickled, which is basically you add water to
Add
it.
water to it.
And it's salt and water is what the pickle is. It's not necessarily vinegar.
The original fort that was here was Fort Charles. That was kind of over in this area here. They're not exactly 100% sure where it is. But as you can see, this was a wooden fort. It was a palisaded fort. There's some stories going on in this picture. It was actually manned by two groups of soldiers, a group of royal soldiers from New York, which is sort of represented by these folks here, and also manned by New England militia. And during the Glorious Revolution, when I think it's Charles is deposed, the militia, we signed a contract to serve under King Charles.
Right.
Charles is gone, so see ya.
See ya.
So they left. The royal troops are still here, and at that point, there's not very many of them. The natives realized now's our opportunity.
chance.
They attack the fort and burn it to the ground. The soldiers, leave. A lot of them are killed. But it's how they attack that influences the structure of this fort.
Stone.
Because stone, for one thing, but also this rock here it's inside the tower now, because the natives actually hide behind this rock and fire down into the fort,
down into the
and that's how they capture the fort. So when they build, this is 1689, when they build Fort William Henry in 1692, the rock is in that tower. So they learned. They learned a little bit. Their water source was still outside the fort. It wasn't real
Not a good
smart,
plan. Yeah.
So the Fort William Henry is here for about 4 years. 1696, it falls under attack by the French and the natives again. The French sail 3 ships into the harbor, and the natives come overland from New Harbor. There's a little bit of exchange of cannon fire, and the English surrender the fort very quickly because the fort walls are so shoddily made that they start disintegrating and crumbling. So they realize that their situation is not good. So they surrender, and they're actually able to leave and go back to Boston. They take all their stuff.
Hello, sweetheart. I smell like other dogs.
So these are probably some of the original foundation that he was talking about.
I think so, yeah. You said sticking out.
He said that they were sticking out, so.
So we made it to the top of the fort, and look at the view from up here.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing, and the breeze, it's such a nice day.
Right, it's a beautiful day. But the cool thing is that, you know, this is actually a replica built in the early 1900s off of the original, still in the original location. So down inside you can see when they built this fort in the late 1600s, they built it over a rock that the Indians had used to attack the previous fort. So it's pretty cool. They learned to at least take away that ground, and just really neat. Now, can you imagine? So when the fort finally fell in
Only 4 years after
4
it
years
was
after
built.
built, and I think it was 1696. So the French were coming into the harbor in ships, attacking with cannons, and the Indians were attacking from the backside. When this fort was designed, it was designed to take an attack from the water. But what they quickly realized was that the walls of the fort weren't really built to withstand the kind of attack they were under, plus the Indians coming from the backside they weren't really prepared for. So just a really cool find to be able to come here and see some of this really neat history.
Boy, did we get lucky today to have all of the demonstrators out here and dressed in the era.
Because they only do it once a year, and we just got lucky and happened to be here on the day that they were doing it. We didn't even plan it.
Yeah. So it's time to move on, and let's go see what else we can find.
So here's our next cool spot.
Woohoo, we found another lighthouse.
Right, so we're at the Pemaquid Lighthouse. Now, the coolest fact that I found about this lighthouse was it was originally commissioned
in 1827 by
John Quincy Adams. So that's pretty cool. So we're gonna go in, tour it. Now there is a fee, $3 per person.
Yep.
That's
But
pretty
you actually
cheap.
get to go inside this
You
one.
get to go inside and check things out. So we're kind of looking forward to that, and we'll see what we can show you that might be of interest.
Let's go.
Alright, so we're at the top of the lighthouse. You get to come in. You gotta wait in line, so they let in like a couple people at a time. Stairway's kind of narrow and tight. I counted 30 steps upstairs, and then there's like a small ladder at the top. So supposedly this light goes off every 6 seconds and can be seen for 14 nautical miles. Pretty cool.
That's a long ways.
Yes, it is.